As you recall, we internally here started our strategy process about a year ago. And over the last 1 year, we've worked with Peter's office and Jason's office and the group strategy to make sure that our strategy is aligned. And again, on March 1, Yusuf, Jeremy, and myself stood in front of the market, talked about the strategy, the financial results, as well as the brand. You'll be delighted to know our stock price is up 14% the last 1 month.
It's the first time we are having two executive directors in the country at the same time. When you look at Peter and Jason, we've never had this. Maria, when she comes alone. When Peter comes here, he comes alone, and the same for Patrick, for Jason. Patrick is accompanying just to make sure that whatever commitments we're given, we're going to deliver. So it's a great opportunity for us as colleagues. There's a bit of the strategy, there's a bit of the brand, there's those tough questions. I always ask myself, whenever I go to a forum or whenever I'm meeting analysts, what is that dreadful question that I don't want to be asked? So today, it's a safe environment, guys. Ask all those dreadful questions. There's one that I've always been evading myself, Jeremy, and the leadership team, on the bit of shares and the promise. Is there anything like free shares? That will be answered today. I'm so glad that we have the leadership team to be able to address that. Without further much ado, Peter, the floor is yours.
I want to go back to June last year. Because that's when some of you here on the CMC, together with all of the CMCs from across the continent in the businesses or the banks outside South Africa, came together at Sun City for the first time in many years. And we said very clearly we need to take ownership of where we are going and why. We did a lot of work with McKinsey, and I know you guys are tired of seeing consultants. You're smart enough, you don't need consultants. At the end of the day, you've got Moses after all, so what do you need consultants for? But more importantly, we wanted to make sure we would make a real contribution to where we were going on the strategy. And one of the key principal issues Maria has been very clear about is that she wanted to take this opportunity, this inflection point, to change the way we do things, to create a new environment, a new culture, a new platform, and to be absolutely clear about where we are going and why. And Jason will tell you, as Maria's leadership team, we took a year to develop that work. We wanted to reset the shape and the direction of our organization, but not in one of those top-down, get the consultants to give you some wonderful PowerPoint slides. We really wanted to make sure we extended across the organization in order to make sure we get that cross-section of people who lead to help us get to where we want to go, define where we want to go to. What we're very, very clear about as well was that we want to make sure that the vision we create is a compelling one. It's not some ethereal nonsense. It's one that galvanizes not just us inside the organization, but society at large, whether here or elsewhere, because as we began to think about ourselves, it's beyond banking. It's beyond being a financial institution. If you think about the things we stand for, our values, etc., it's way beyond banking. It isn't just about being bankers. And importantly, we wanted to make sure that in the how, we end up building a strong, resilient, modern organization that continues to reinvent itself, that continues to drive innovation, and one that doesn't get bureaucratic as we've been in the past, and to look at therefore what is different about what we do and how we do it. That's the pathway we took. We wanted to be collaborative, and it's got to be core to what we do. Importantly, we really knew that we have to be bold. If we were timid, if we were uncertain, if we were worried about who and what we are and what we stood for, we're clear. I don't know about you, but wherever you go, if you're timid, and I'm not saying being quiet or considered, I'm saying timid as in almost receding. In markets where we operate, the elephants run you over. So being timid is not what we were looking to do. Being bold, being fact-based, and being innovative are the things that we believed must underpin and drive our strategy. And indeed, that's was informed to a large extent by the energy, by the stuff we got out of every single market where we have colleagues, because they were saying, stop sitting on the fence. Get on with it. Let's drive. We own this space. Let's extend what we own in this space. So we wanted to make sure we answered what we called the what questions, what we were going to do, and then of course all of the other elements around that and our organizational journey and where we're going to go. We also got to understand and know today is that we have some of the most extraordinary assets across this continent, and that therefore, based on this asset base and our ambition and capability, we really believe we have the opportunity in these markets to grow and grow significantly, both organically and inorganically. We've chosen as an organization, we've not been forced to, we've chosen based on the work we've done, the fact base we've developed, all of your input, to move away from being command and control driven to being a business that is made up of people of English again, Peter, press button, reset. Okay. Entrepreneurially driven, diverse, inclusive, and making sure that means we listen more than we talk a lot of the time, and we make sure we have a bias for action rather than a bias for admiring problems. So we've got to demonstrate that being customer obsessed means that we've moved away from this centralized decision making and we think we know what we need to do, but to listening and executing as to what the customer needs. And if you look at the investments that we've been making and we continue to make in all of our platforms over the next 2 to 3 years, it's got to translate in the customer always feeling and knowing we've put them at the center of our universe. This term digital is sometimes abused because it's used to cover all manner of sins. But what we do know is that our platforms, cannot be the legacy platforms that we've had for years and years. And so, when you see Jeremy in that fancy hoodie, kind of doing his Temiza dance and stuff like that, what he does in my mind represent is the people who's made it very clear that unless we are able to participate and create platforms that transform the way in which we interact with ourselves internally, so our processes, but more importantly with our customers, if we don't do that, we've lost. And our lunch will be eaten by fintechs and mobile network operators if we aren't careful. We're an African organization. We're rooted in this continent. It doesn't mean we will not do business elsewhere. But what we do know is that in our backyard, which is this continent, we want to be the winner. We are going to dominate every part of it because we know we can do that here. However, we're going to be globally interlocked because we know that our clients are not just African in the way in which people like to kind of compartmentalize us. They've got global ambition, they've got global clients, global scope. So we have to partner them all the way across. So scalable platforms, you will see, is a very core part of the strategy that we want to be able to build and roll out quite quickly. We also know that if we are not an active force for good in society, actually society passes you by. And the best way I try and encapsulate that is the following. Where we are, people must want us to stay. Where we are, people must want us to stay because we do the right things for the right reasons. Where we've been, they must be very happy for us to come back because they know when we were there, we made a real difference in their lives, and where we are going, they must want us to hurry up and get there because they know that when we get there, we transform the societies in which we operate in. And I use that really to kind of get the essence of being active for good purposes in society. And that's critical for us, and it's more than just shared growth. It's beyond shared growth in many respects. It is absolutely critical that we recognize that our ambitions are not to simply stay as we are now. Our ambition is to grow and grow aggressively, but that might not mean that we only grow in what I call traditional banking. You could be buying a platform, a banking platform. We need to look more creatively and innovatively at the different ecosystems that support or give us enhanced growth opportunities that transform the way in which we service our customers and we service society. And that really talks to a number of areas. So when you think about it, our fintechs who come at us is because they want to pick all the juicy bits here, there, and everywhere. We've got to outthink them, outplay them, and play in areas that begin to create new ecosystems that allow us to service our customers differently.
You know, if you think of back in 2013, 2012, I think my first engagements with Barclays Kenya were around the time when Barclays PLC was disposing of its businesses across the continent to ABSA, which is where I worked at the time. And we did an amazing deal then. ABSA was very much a South African-focused company. It had some investments in Tanzania and Mozambique and on a small scale, but very much a South African company. And Barclays was running its businesses across the continent in a very separate way. In other words, it was rare for us to talk to each other whether you were in South Africa or Kenya. It wasn't very coordinated. We saw the opportunity of creating a Pan-African group, which we call Barclays Africa Group Limited today. And from 2013 on, it's safe to say that we've delivered on every commitment we made our stakeholders as a team. So we said our businesses outside South Africa would be invested in. We said they would grow faster than South Africa. And we said that we would build a diverse and portfolio diverse organization across the continent. We've been able to do that, and as you know, we've been investing heavily in technology and other items over the years, and it puts us in a much stronger position today as a firm than what we were in 2013. And then obviously in March 2016, 2 years ago last month, we all woke up to the news that in fact Barclays was going to be selling its investment in the continent. We were disappointed. Many of us that had worked with Barclays for a long time, I count myself as a Barclays person. Really, quite a momentous decision. And I think that initial disappointment was one of reflection. In other words, why would Barclays sell its investment in an emerging market that has huge growth, that's got its capital, it's got its customers, it's got everything that it needs to generate superior returns? So you digest that. Then you step back and you realize that, in fact, it's an opportunity to be embraced, right? It's an opportunity to put us on our own path, right? Incredibly exciting. Comes with accountability, comes with independence, comes with autonomy. But that accountability piece is one that it really, weighed on my shoulders for a while. I'll be honest with you, and weighed on our leadership team's shoulders. But we very quickly got over the disappointment and then sought to look at the positives, sought to seize the opportunity. Now I can tell you that Barclays, in their context, made the right decision. I didn't like it, but they made the right decision. And the reason they made that decision was not because they had doubts about our prospects or doubts about our future or our growth. They had a real issue, and we wore that issue. Yusuf knows we wore that issue for the 5 years that we created our group. In that Barclays was in a position, unfortunately, through the financial crisis, of trying to survive. It was in a survival mode. It was in a capital constrained mode. It was on a cost containment mode, because that's how it sought to survive. The new CEO arrived and said he's going to resolve that, and he has to sell something to create capital to make Barclays survive into the future. And because we created Barclays Africa in 2013, it was a ring-fenced organization. It had enough capital. It was very marketable. It could be sold, right? Had a strong leadership team, had good prospects. So that's, if you rationalize it like that, it makes sense. But obviously your emotional part is to say, our parent is putting us into the big cold world. From that moment on, as I said, we embraced it. We sought to ensure that our firm is sustainable. One of the biggest worries I had was how on earth we would take 62.5% shareholder, which, as you'd imagine, is billions of dollars, and dispose of that in an orderly manner to new shareholders. And who would our new shareholders be? Now, you'll recall rumors and stories in the market. Could it be a Chinese bank? Could it be a Middle Eastern bank, a Russian bank? Who would be interested in this? And what we came up with was, in fact, another answer: to create a very diverse shareholder base. a shareholder base that would make us not reliant on any one shareholder going forward. Right, so today, Barclays owns just under 15% of us. While the separation is material, they'll be required to own about 10% of us. But we actually see that as almost like, with free float. Our full shareholding can be changing hands at any point in time fairly soon. And that's positive. It makes us very diverse from a shareholder perspective, makes us very resilient, not reliant on any one shareholder. I think that's the place we should be. We got that done a little bit ahead of schedule. We got it done mostly back end of May, early June last year. We did the biggest overnight transaction in emerging market all over the world has ever seen. Right? So we moved all of those shares, found new homes for them. Investors that participated in that book build bought stock in our company at 132 Rand a share from Barclays. Since then, we've paid them about an 11 Rand dividend a share, and the stock price today is about 195 Rand. So they've seen 60, 70% growth in that investment, which makes them excited to be part of our journey, right? If they came in dollars or pounds, and you know what emerging market currencies like the shilling and the rand have done over time, it's 20% better than that. So for them, this is a very attractive opportunity, which makes us very comfortable with the fact that our equity is secure. The last part of the presentation, which Peter's broadly covered, talks about what it means for us in the future. What is our strategy? And with those trade-offs, as you know, in the past, I think we were somewhat capital focused, somewhat returns focused. If you had to weigh these things up, returns versus earnings, and in fact, we said we want to grow. To stand up and say you want to double your market share of revenue on the continent over the next few years is a very bold statement, right? Very bold. What makes me confident about that, we've got the right people. We need to work on our culture. We need to invest in technology. We need to get this rebranding right. Now, my perspective of branding is interesting. And we've done, Peter, 100,000 interviews or 180,000 interviews, across the continent. And a brand is a brand, but brands are also changing. And when we have to go to our shareholders next month to get an approval to change the name of the holding company. When we articulate and when we present what the brand means, don't automatically assume we haven't thought of a South African connotation. Of course we have. Right? It's not the Absa of the past. It's not the Absa of South Africa. It's an iconic thing. We've had insight from the millennial generation, which you can clearly see I'm not part of, but I listen to very carefully, in terms of how to make something iconic. And the soundbite that I always leave with people, because we will make a big splash of this at the right time in the next few months. You always think of some of the latest and greatest brands in the world. They don't even have their name there anymore. It's like a picture, it's an icon. So think of Apple. Apple doesn't say Apple anywhere. Mercedes hardly says Mercedes-Benz anywhere anymore. It's a star. So you've got to think about how we're going down that path, and how red can be a powerful color in the spectrum of red.
I remember sometime last year speaking to Peter and Jason, as I just come back and just not sure about what Barclays living was all about. And as Peter puts it, the blue eagle flying away and the blue tears remaining. I can assure you, and I'm sure for many of us, my blue tears are drying up, and thanks to the reassurance.